Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Chart a Personal Breakthrough with the Enneagram. Access your witness consciousness to increase self-awareness and welcome positive change. My name is Stephen Dunn. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm really blessed to be with you here, getting to learn how to apply the sort of the more advanced teachings in many ways of the Enneagram with one of the world's pioneers in this important area. Her name is Beatrice Chestnut. She's a PhD psychotherapist, a consultant, author, and co-founder of the CP Enneagram Academy. She's taught for Shift before and is really a deep teacher of the Enneagram that I think we're going to learn a lot from today. So, Beatrice, thank you so much for joining us here today.
It's wonderful to be with you, Stephen. Thank you for having me.
Great. Well, I want to let everyone know up front, we're going to dive in. We're going to do an experiential, and we also have a chance to go much deeper with Beatrice in her upcoming program, which is brand new. It's called the Enneagram of Spiritual Awakening, a 3-stage path for cultivating witness consciousness, integrating your shadow, and accessing your true self. So we'll share more about that towards the end of the hour. So, Beatrice, I'd love for you to start us off today with a little bit of your journey into the Enneagram and particularly into the sort of upper octaves of the spiritual dimensions that we're going to focus on today.
Sure, sure. So I'm an academic and a psychotherapist by training, and I learned the Enneagram in 1990, and I was shocked by its accuracy and depth. The way it described me to myself was kind of amazing. Through my interest in the Enneagram, I became more interested in psychological growth, but also in spiritual development. And the esoteric teachings behind the Enneagram really fascinated me. So I completed an Enneagram intensive training in 1997. And this training gave me a taste of what it was like to be working with the Enneagram, and I wanted it to be more central in what I did in life. So I actually went back to school to become a psychotherapist because I learned about the Enneagram. And gradually, I also started working with teams and leaders in business settings with the Enneagram as well. So from the beginning of when I was a psychotherapist, I was always using the Enneagram with my clients and always seeing the ways it helped us in a very efficient way to grow or, heal trauma or solve whatever problems and challenges they were having in their life. And I found that not only was it a psychological tool, but also something that helped people to really see how their personality was blocking them from accessing more of their higher potential. So I wrote some books on the Enneagram. I wrote The Complete Enneagram in 2013, which I wrote to provide people with a practical Enneagram perspective from my point of view as a working psychotherapist, sort of how do you connect the dots with the Enneagram and whatever's happening in your life? And also to add more depth to the Enneagram theory that I thought was out there. I wrote two more books, one focusing on the business setting, the 9 types of leadership. And also in recent years, I wrote a book with my teaching partner, Uranio Paes, a Brazilian Enneagram expert. And that's called The Enneagram Guide to Waking Up. Now, Uranio and I, in recent years, in the last 6 years, opened an Enneagram school that we call the CP Enneagram Academy. And in that school, I've really had the chance to go even deeper with the Enneagram work. We train professionals, coaches, spiritual directors, psychotherapists, and how to use the Enneagram with more skill and confidence. And we also lead inner work retreats where we really see people go very deep and transform in a big way, using the Enneagram as both an entry point to understanding themselves better and also as a kind of step-by-step pathway to kind of understanding what they really need to do to grow to the highest level they're capable of.
Well, it's quite a background that you've created really out of that initial interest in the Enneagram. And so let's talk a little bit about, so sometimes people approach the Enneagram in a little more static way. Oh, I just want to kind of see a sort of snapshot of myself. Whereas you really sort of see it through this developmental lens of how do we use it as a pathway for transformation or pathway to more and more of ourselves. So maybe share a little bit about your perspective on the 9 types and how to sort of view that through the lens of this kind of transformational path.
Sure. So, yeah, the Enneagram, like other personality typologies, can be taken as something that just describes you to yourself or defines some of the differences in your perspective between your type and maybe somebody else with a different type. But much more than that, it's a growth model. It's something that helps you see things about yourself that you might not see otherwise, right? It helps you see blind spots. It helps us really see into and understand and integrate our shadow. So the parts of ourselves that we're not so conscious of and that we maybe even actively try to avoid being conscious of. Because the personality operates a little bit like the ego. There's a way that it's about keeping us safe. It's a defensive self structure. And so, although it helps us be functional in the world, there's a way that if we just function day-to-day life and we don't learn more about ourselves through something like the Enneagram, we risk kind of staying stuck in life. And so the Enneagram helps us see a fuller view of who we really are, and it helps us move beyond the level of the ego to, in some ways, let the ego drop so that we can access more of the divine in ourselves. And the ego or the personality operates almost like a teacher or a vehicle for understanding ourselves at a much deeper level so that we can see more of what's false enough that needs to be kind of let go of because it limits us without us really realizing it. And by letting go of what blocks us or what limits us, it helps us realize more of who we really are.
Hmm. If you share a little bit more about how this integration of what's in the shadows or what's we maybe haven't seen or don't want to see about ourselves is so key to that dropping of the ego.
Right. So, the ego by definition, or a personality, it's that part of us that is sort of directs us in daily life. It's the part of us that's a little more conscious. But really, when we take our whole self, we are our ego to a degree, but we're much, much more than that. So the Enneagram is like an objective map. It's almost like it's coming from a higher level. And so it illuminates parts of yourself that you avoid seeing, because some of what we avoid seeing might come from being wounded in childhood or early traumas, or just, that our personality focuses its attention on certain things in our life that we need to maybe do to get through our day, but it doesn't focus on other things. So the Enneagram descriptions both sort of shine a light on those aspects of ourselves that we don't pay attention to the parts of ourselves that maybe we think are unacceptable, that we don't want to admit to ourselves or don't want others to see. And it helps us see how those blind spots and shadow aspects actually fit into the bigger picture of who we really are. That it shows us that the personality is really a limited self, a kind of false self, and that when we can see what our false self is really up to, we can let it drop and access more of what's sometimes called the true self, or our higher capacities, which includes our spiritual capacities and that part of us which is divine. And so the Enneagram descriptions lay that out for us, but then the Enneagram also operates as a map of development. And so it helps us see what we need to do in order to integrate the shadow, like feel certain kinds of pain, look at and integrate certain things that we avoid being aware of, and welcome those things as just part of who we are, to the point where our personality really loses its reason for existing because we don't need that defensive apparatus anymore.
I'd love for maybe take a type or two and just give us an example of how this process can work to sort of integrate the sort of what might be in the shadows of a particular type.
Sure. So I'll take my own type because it's the one I know the best. So I'm a type 2. And for a 2, we focus our attention a lot outside ourselves. We focus on other people, on how other people are feeling, because our coping strategy is a lot about how we can connect with other people, and through supporting them, making them feel good about themselves and about us, they can maybe meet our needs. Now, the blind spot of the 2 is our own needs, because we focus so much on other people, we tend not to focus on ourselves. So I can sort of sense more what somebody else needs than what I need myself. But in order to really be a full person, and in order to really participate in relationship in a fulfilling way, I need to get more in touch with my needs. I need to get more in touch with the way my help of others, in order to ingratiate myself with them, can actually be about control. It can actually be more self-serving than it looks. I'm not just sort of altruistically giving to someone. I'm actually giving to get. I'm giving them something, so maybe they'll approve of me, or they'll meet a need when I have it in reciprocal fashion. So it's been a big journey for me to see how I wasn't very tuned into the inside of myself, my own feelings, my own needs. And I focused a lot on managing what was going on out there, on making somebody else like me. And I didn't even ask the question if I like them. Right. So it's helped me realize that a lot of my blind spot and where I don't focus my attention is on my inner experience. And my experience of the world and relationships gets filled out and more fulfilling when I can really focus both on others in a more balanced way, and also what's going on inside myself, so I can speak my own needs as well as hear what others need.
That makes a lot of sense. What is the role for what you call the inner witness in this process?
So the inner witness is really the key to the methodology behind the Enneagram. The way the Enneagram really helps us is by coming to know who we really are and studying our personality in a moment-to-moment way every day. When we first start working with the Enneagram, we find that we usually think that we know ourselves pretty well. We're with ourselves every day. But when we really start activating the inner witness, that part of ourselves that can really observe what we're doing moment to moment, and we can remember to observe ourselves, it's like it creates this kind of muscle inside ourselves where we can activate this conscious part of ourselves, the witness, and have it really observe what's truly happening with our personality as we go. And so by studying our personality, we both learn more about what's really true for us, and we develop more consciousness by identifying more with this inner witness, a kind of witnessing consciousness, and creating more of a separation between the witness and that which it witnesses, such that we're able to make more conscious choices. We're able to shift our attention from one thing to another and exercise more of an active intention in the things that we do in our life.
So when we talk about the inner witness, I wonder if you can help us differentiate between seeing something ourselves that we don't like versus like the inner witness and this sort of more embracing of the full spectrum of who we are.
Yeah, so the inner witness is, a really important thing about the inner witness, and this is something we sometimes need to make an effort to cultivate, is that it's non-judgmental. It's almost like there is a video recorder just right outside to one side of you, kind of recording everything you do. It's more objective. And so the inner witness, when it's just kind of watching what you do, it's like it's reporting in a much more neutral way, what's happening. So instead of you sort of thinking you're a certain way or having an image of yourself a certain way, it's like that witness is saying, oh, this is what you're actually doing right now. Oh, I noticed that you're doing that thing you do again. So the witness also kind of notices patterns and reminds you of like, oh, here you're doing that thing you do again. And again, it's not from a point of judging ourselves or criticizing ourselves. It's more from a point of view of, wow, maybe you're not as aware as you thought you were, because what you're actually doing is this, but without judging ourselves. That's really the key. Because when we can start to just catch ourselves in the act over and over again, it's like, oh, there I go again. And I notice it in myself. For instance, sometimes if I'm trying to get somebody's approval, and let's say they liked a certain movie or a certain book, I'll notice myself saying, oh, I liked that too. And inside myself, I'm realizing, well, actually, I didn't like it, but I'm kind of misrepresenting myself here, because that's what my personality does. So as I see that happening without judging myself, eventually I can learn not to misrepresent myself, to sort of proactively say, oh, wait a minute here. This is one of those things where I might, tell a little white lie to make this person like me, because I think it sort of lubricates the social interaction, when really I'm not showing up as who I really am. And so what would it be like in those situations where I could actually just tell the truth?
Hmm.
And so over time, you learn to just see what you're doing and make adjustments in the direction of what's really more true, or more from a deeper, higher sense of who you really are.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting because so many of the qualities that are in the shadow, like you were saying, if as a two, you're more generous, but underneath there's sort of a manipulation in that you're trying to
Yes.
manipulate your image or somebody else. Like often we have a connotation that the manipulation is sort of like, oh, that's bad or that's a problem. So how do you start to kind of the subtler levels of like removing our bias against the sort of the deeper truth in some ways, like which isn't always sort of, the ideal that we're trying to strive towards.
Exactly. I mean, again, part of it is really not judging ourselves, just seeing, well, there's a reason why I do these things, right? Like there's a reason why I manipulate. It's like my ego thinks that I had to do that in order to feel okay in the world. But as I study myself, I realize actually people like me more if I'm more authentic. So part of it is not judging it. And part of it is the Enneagram helps us understand that some of the things that we thought were bad are actually good, right? So there are some types, for instance, that avoid conflict, right, as part of their personality. And sometimes maybe they even have an early life experience of being harmed by conflict around them, you know? And what they find with the Enneagram is actually being afraid of conflict is blocking your ability to be powerful in the world and express an opinion or show up in a certain way. And so the Enneagram has a great way of showing us that who we really are is actually much better than we thought it would be. We just have come to learn certain definitions that we need to outgrow or redefine. So, for instance, on the one hand, learning I was more manipulative, I needed to bring in some compassion for myself and understand that. It's like, well, I learned that I had to manipulate because I had the experience of not getting my needs met if I didn't. And feeling the pain of that, feeling some sadness for myself, but realizing that's an old story, it's an old script. And actually, now people appreciate me more if I take the risk of being honest, even if it means I say something that they don't like.
Hmm. So in that case, like how does the ability or attunement to kind of manipulate, how does that actually become a strength then when you really first disidentify and then own it and embrace it?
I think, first of all, there's something really freeing in being able to be honest with yourself about who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it. And the more we understand, what we're doing and why, the more the more self-acceptance we get in a kind of counterintuitive way. The more I understand, well, here's what I'm doing when I'm manipulating. And I actually don't mean any harm from it, but I can cause harm because I'm being inauthentic, or I'm selling myself short, or I'm selling others short. So there's a way that by kind of grappling with the learning experience behind the confrontation of the manipulation, I'm learning more about myself. I'm learning to have more compassion for myself and the reasons behind the motivations why I do things. But then, even more than that, I'm learning to shift that behavior in a way that's actually more healthy and more positive. Because once I really see this challenge and understand its sources and its implications and its consequences in my life, that activity of making that so conscious creates a lot more space for me to realize that I can do things differently and realize the shifts, the positive shifts that happen when I'm able to say, actually, I used to kind of manipulate behind the scenes, but now I can just be direct and honest. And it's not as scary as it used to be, or maybe if it's scary in the beginning, it becomes less so with practice. And I also experience positive, consequences in my life from being closer to people, or from people knowing me better, and for me feeling freer that I don't have to hide parts of myself or do something, kind of under the radar in order to get what I need.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I wonder if you can describe to us the three-stage model that you have for self-development, how to apply that with the Enneagram.
Sure. So the Enneagram is such a an effective map for change, and in sort of highlighting how it works for people, I found that it was a really nice way of explaining what it is and also traveling the path that it highlights to describe it in this three-step kind of process. So the first step is finding the path, and we might include things like finding what type you are. And sometimes that's a process, trying to figure out what type you are and what are the ways that you can do that in order to have an entry point to the Enneagram and how it can help you. Next, it's like, what are some of the conscious patterns that you need to start observing in yourself in order to start putting the Enneagram to work for you? So one of the things that the Enneagram helps us with when we talk about observing ourselves is it gives you a guide, it says kind of like, here's what you should watch out for, right? Because when we're starting inner work, we often think, well, what do I do? How do I enter into this? What do I do first and second? And how do I find a way of creating change that works for me? And the Enneagram kind of says, first look at these things. First, notice that you tend to do this. Here's what your personality is like, and here's how you can begin to watch it and see it in action. And then develop kind of a habit of becoming more clear and honest with yourself around what you're actually doing. So that's kind of the find your path way. It's like enter into this pathway of self-development. And then the second part is I call it find your shadow or face your shadow, right? And this is the part where the Enneagram, after you kind of find your type and you realize, wow, I get a lot of insights just about seeing what type I am and all the things that it describes. It's like, it's a powerful experience to have the Enneagram shine a light on you in a way that helps you see a bigger picture of who you are. But the facing your shadow means really having the courage to kind of look at parts of yourself that you haven't been aware of and start to see those parts of yourself as you go through life. Now, facing your shadow also has to do with facing any pain you might need to face in order for the personality or the ego to function less strongly in your life, right? I always remind people that we mistakenly identify with our personality, thinking that's all of who we are, but really we're much more than the personality. But when we can sort of recognize that the personality is a defensive structure, and if we feel our pain, we don't need to be defended as much from the recognition of those parts of ourselves that we were afraid to look at, right? So when we look at, oh, there is this part of me that is really angry or is resentful, and I sort of wanted to kind of put that out of my awareness. I didn't really want to pay attention to that. I didn't want to go there. Sevens are a great example because sevens focus a lot on what's positive as a way of avoiding what's painful. So when a seven can really look at their pain and really be with it and realize that it's okay and it actually brings positive change, then that can change everything for them because the personality has less reason for existing and controlling the things that you do in your life. So then the third step is, I call it discover your true self. So in looking at our pain and facing things about ourselves that we don't really like at first, but understanding them more and learning to integrate those things, it helps to start having something higher to aspire to. It helps to have something to clarify, like, what are we going for? What are we really aiming for? And it's almost like when we're looking at sort of the shadowy parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that we may feel ashamed of, or we think other people aren't going to like, when we start seeing those in a different light as just part of being human, as coping strategies that helped us survive early in life, and then we can start seeing how the core of sort of our personality is directly connected to something higher that is its opposite. we can start being inspired by the aspects that are true of our higher self. So looking to the higher qualities of your type can help you start living into those qualities as you let go of the personality aspects that you've maybe been attached to, just as a way to feel safe in the world.
Really illuminating. So thanks so much for all of this teaching around this. And now I want to invite you to do an experiential that allows us to really embody this.
Sure. So I'm going to do a short practice that will just hopefully give people a taste of what I mean when I say activating an inner witness or witnessing consciousness. So I'd like for everyone, if you can, to really put your feet on the ground and sit up straight in a posture that favors meditation, and close your eyes and put your attention inside yourself and just breathe in and out and really focus on relaxing. Breathe in and out as deeply as you can. And as you breathe, notice what's happening inside you. Almost as if there's a little part of you, maybe kind of up and to the right of you, just a little bit, maybe a few inches or a foot up and to the right of you. It's just sort of watching you. It's just very aware of what you're feeling. Maybe you're feeling a little anxious. Just noticing what's going on with your breathing. Are you breathing into your chest? Are you breathing down deeper into your belly? What's going on as you breathe? And remembering to also notice if there's any judgment that you have as you notice what's happening. You have any self-criticism, any inner critic that gets triggered. Just try to notice that too and let it go. And go back to just noticing your breath. And focusing again your attention on that witness. How do you feel in your body today? Do you notice any tension? Do you notice yourself getting distracted as you just focus on your breath? What are you noticing now? Notice if you forget to notice and you just get caught up in a thought that kind of takes you away. And bring yourself back very gently with an attitude of loving kindness toward yourself. Next, I want to just lead you in a very simple shift of attention. Focusing your attention inside yourself and on your breath again. move your focus to the far wall, wherever you're sitting. Focus on the wall in front of you. Focus your attention now on shifting your focus from inside you to the far wall. Now shift your attention back inside yourself so that you're feeling the breath coming in and out inside your body. And notice that you can kind of activate these shifts. You can not only notice where your attention goes, but you can actually shift with consciousness and through an act of will what you pay attention to, where your attention is directed. Take a few more really deep, slow breaths. Again, just observing. What is it like as I take the breath in and release my breath? Does it feel easy? Is there something about how you're feeling today in your body that makes it hard? Again, just noticing, registering, observing. Where are you now? Did your attention go away? Did it get taken up by a thought or by a sensation in your body or by a feeling? And just notice. Notice what that was. Register what's happening. And notice that there's a difference or a separation between that part of you that's just noticing and registering and what you're actually observing. Your body or your thought or your breath or your sensations. And notice that as you go back to observing again, you're actually empowering the witness inside you and creating more space, more conscious space between that part that's observing and noticing and registering and that part of you that's just doing what you do, feeling how you feel, getting distracted or not, and just being or thinking or feeling. And now, when you're ready, just open your eyes and come back.
Well, thank you. Yeah, really peaceful practice and to sort of just settle into that deeper embracing part of ourselves. And I think what occurs to me coming out of that is how do you apply that in the interpersonal realm where so many of our type of patterns will tend to manifest in the most dramatic form?
Yeah, that's a very important question. I think the first thing is that it starts with focusing on ourselves. And the Enneagram is tied to ancient wisdom that is connected to the idea of know thyself. That was that famous statement that was inscribed at the Temple of Delphi in ancient Greece. And it's sort of the idea that if you know yourself, if you're observing yourself, if you're learning about yourself, if you're taking all your challenges as learning experiences, that in itself actually does a lot to shift how you interact with others and how they experience you. When you are more conscious, it leads to taking more responsibility. It leads to being more aware of how you impact others. But then, of course, another big learning that comes through the Enneagram path is having more empathy for other people and recognizing that what you observe in yourself can be very different than what someone else with a different type observes in themselves. Right. So learning what type you are, you learn a lot about yourself and you come to have much more compassion for what you do, and you learn more about why you do what you do. And when you come to know someone else's type and when your relationship with somebody else, you start to understand that there is no right or wrong. There is no better and worse. It's like that other person is doing what they're doing. And to the extent that they're not capable of observing themselves, it may be harder to interact with them because they may not take responsibility for what they do. They may not be as conscious of what they do. And so they may just be acting from ego or from personality. And when we're acting more from ego, we're by definition more on automatic. It's like going through life on autopilot. It's not being aware of why we do what we do and then being able to take responsibility for that, which is kind of the kind of thing we need to do to become better at being in relationship, to become better partners or friends or family members. So it really helps us understand ourselves. And sometimes when we're doing our own inner work and we're shifting and changing and taking more responsibility for what we do and able to explain to others what we're learning about ourselves, often that really inspires other people to do their inner work to become more conscious as well. People sometimes say, like, what's the best type for me to be with if I'm a particular type? And the Enneagram answer is, it doesn't really matter what type that other person is. What matters is the level of consciousness. And the big important thing behind the Enneagram is it helps us go from a lower level of consciousness, which the personality is grounded in by definition, to a higher level of consciousness through learning to disidentify with our personality. And when we do that, it often has a big impact on our relationships and what's happening in the world around us.
Really profound insights. And I'd love for you to circle back to the title of today around charting a personal breakthrough. So maybe get more really specific about how do people take everything you've been sharing today and really sort of map out how do we create a breakthrough using the three-stage model and the understanding the witness and creating a breakthrough around how we navigate life with our type.
Sure. So no matter what you're feeling challenged by in your life, it could be, transitioning out of a relationship or experiencing a loss, or maybe feeling stuck in a career that isn't satisfying and wanting to shift to something else. Maybe it's feeling depressed or anxious. No matter what you're feeling challenged by, the Enneagram can help you understand what's happening, why it's happening, and how to shift it. Because learning about our type patterns and learning about what we need to do when we have certain patterns to change and grow is such a customized, individualized map for development. So if you're maybe experiencing a depression, that will mean different things depending on what type you are. I sometimes say there's 9 kinds of depression. It's not the same for people of every type, even though we have one name for depression. If you're kind of experiencing a midlife transition and you're experiencing some uncertainties about yourself or your identity or what's next, the Enneagram can help you understand what's going on there, because it helps us understand what our patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving are. It helps us understand what we resist being aware of. And it also helps us understand how we go from identifying with a smaller self or a false self or this personality self, and what we need to do to move beyond it. And often the things that challenge us are really understandable and get really clarified when we see them through the lens of our type. And the nice thing about the Enneagram is not only does it describe these 9 types, but it describes a very specific growth path for each of the 9 types. And the subtypes, which are the 3 versions of each of the 9 types. So the specificity of what to do in certain situations and when you're experiencing certain challenges with the Enneagram really helps for you to kind of know what actions should I take or not take. What can I do? What do I need to get in touch with? What do I need to understand? What do I need to work on? What do I need to work against? It gives us so much good information that's really targeted and aimed right at what we need to learn the most in order to go from a lower level of consciousness to a higher level. And we sometimes say the problems created by the personality can't be solved by the personality at that lower level of consciousness. A raise in the level of consciousness is what helps us grow and change no matter what's going on with us. And the Enneagram helps us see that both by understanding our type structure better and understanding the step-by-step path of development that is associated with each of the types.
Makes so much sense. Well, Beatrice, you are just the fountain of deep wisdom on this subject. And I want to spend some time now talking about your upcoming program that we mentioned earlier, because I think it's such a unique and powerful opportunity for begin to really access these higher capacities within ourselves, to integrate more of ourselves, and to really use the Enneagram as a pathway for deep transformation. So the program that Beatrice is going to be teaching is called the Enneagram of Spiritual Awakening, a 3-stage path for cultivating witness consciousness, integrating your shadow, and accessing your true self. You can find it at the URL, theenneagrampath.com, theenneagrampath.com. It's a 7-week program, and there's no prerequisites. It's really for if you feel called, and you'll be able to get enough of the foundational understandings to really chart a breakthrough for yourself in working with the Enneagram. So Beatrice, I'd love for you to share in your own words about the intentions for this course and where you're going to be, what people will come away with, and then let's go through the modules after that.
I really wanted this course to be something that would speak to people, whether they're new to the Enneagram or they're experienced veterans and they've been working with the Enneagram for a while. I'm thinking of it as kind of like an immersive experience in the kind of what do you do once you know your type, or what do you do to really take advantage of all the Enneagram has to offer as a spiritual growth path, as a path that helps us wake up. And so I structured it in terms of sort of the beginning, the middle, and the end of the path. Of course, in 7 weeks, we can maybe only get a taste of the larger meaning of the Enneagram, but I thought it would be really powerful to really take people through different experiences of observing themselves, noticing what they see, taking their current moment challenges as learning opportunities as we grow, and using the different aspects of the Enneagram, the passion, the fixation, the instincts, the subtypes, the arrow line movements, as different ways of applying the Enneagram to wherever we are now. So kind of like, how do we walk that path together? How do we experience the beginning of the path? And how can we take that into what we're experiencing in our daily lives and really have the Enneagram work come alive through doing it in community and following particular steps and learning about particular aspects that can really shed light on what we're going through and how to create change, how to create real breakthroughs through applying the Enneagram.
Great. So module 1 is called Go Beyond Personality to Manifest Your Highest Potential with the Enneagram Path of Awakening.
Right. So in the beginning, I want to give an overview of what we're going to do in the course. And it's also the beginning of starting the path. It's the beginning of understanding what is this thing called the Enneagram? How does it help us transform? And the idea being that when we understand a little bit about what the Enneagram is and what the whole path is, and how to enter into it and how to apply it to our own experience, then we can really travel the path with a lot of consciousness and get a lot out of it. So the first module is kind of an overview of what the Enneagram path to awakening is. How do you use the Enneagram path to wake up? What does that mean exactly?
Module 2, accurately identify your Enneagram type and explore subtypes. Part 1, unveil your unconscious habits and shift into deeper self-awareness.
So the next two modules, modules 2 and 3, are kind of like what I think about as the first stage of the journey that's mapped by the Enneagram. It's entering into it. What do I need to know about my type? How do I find my type? Once I find my type, what are the first things I need to do to work on? And how can I start to activate an inner witness in a way that really helps me see what's going on for me now? And how can I understand that through an Enneagram lens, through so I can start to make more sense of whatever I'm feeling challenged by in Enneagram terms? So how do I enter into the path? How do I really find my type for those people who are maybe new? How do I deepen my experience of my type in the beginning in terms of what I'm observing in myself, what some of my conscious patterns are, and how can I make that a daily practice in my life?
Module 3, accurately identify your Enneagram type and explore subtypes. Part 2, strengthen the inner witness and disidentify with personality.
So in those first two modules, I'll kind of present an overview of what I'm talking about as that first stage. What does that mean? And then we'll go through the 9 types. So in module 2, we'll go through 4 of the types. And then in module 3, we'll go through the other 5 types. So for each type, we'll kind of learn, what do you need to do to find your opening to your path? What do you need to do to apply the Enneagram at kind of the first stage of the journey, where you're activating that witness, you're learning to observe yourself, and you're starting to interpret whatever challenges you're having through the Enneagram lens.
Module 4, see, own, and integrate the shadow. Part 1, discover your blind spots, fixations, and key unconscious patterns.
So in this module, we'll start to look more at the blind spots of the Enneagram types and how to face your shadow, how to look at those parts of yourself that you maybe don't see or aren't as aware of as some of the other parts of your personality. So we're looking at the parts that we don't want to see. And I'll first give an overview to what that second stage of the journey is all about, what it means to integrate our shadows and how we can do that generally. And then in that module, I'll talk about 4 of the types and how those 4 types can start to go more to the unconscious patterns that need to be made conscious as a big part of what helps us grow.
Module 5, see, own, and integrate the shadow. Part 2, go deeper into key unconscious patterns, passions, and fixations.
So then we'll also explore the shadow of the next 5 types that we didn't cover in the module previous. So we'll explore the shadow and what to do to feel the pain, go to a deeper level, really apply the Enneagram more in depth to that unconscious part for the other 5 types.
And then finally, we have modules 6 and 7, which are parts 1 and 2 of Discover Your True Self.
I'll give an introduction to how do you start looking for the higher side. Some people want to go to the high side too quickly. It can be a spiritual bypass to kind of just want to go to love and forgiveness and your higher self before you've looked at your shadow. But after we've done the shadow work and really understanding what that means, then I think it can be incredibly inspiring and motivating to really understand, what are you really moving toward? What's inviting you forward? What's in your higher self that is going to be so fulfilling and exciting to live into? And I find that when we can focus on the high side, it really helps people gain even more momentum in their path and start really living into something beyond what they may have thought was possible for themselves.
Well, it's clear in listening to you, Beatrice, just how transformational this is going to be, and just how illuminating in a very, non-judgmental way, just how we can integrate more of ourselves and understand and embrace more of who we are, so that we can be liberated in a very deep way from unconscious patterns. So this you can find more detail at the enneagrampath.com. You'll get not only the 7 90-minute live sessions with Beatrice that we just described, you also have time to ask your questions live. You'll get recordings of every session, both video and audio, which is super helpful to be able to go back for years to come and access them when you need it most. You also have word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There are weekly exercises and practices you can do at home. There's a Facebook community to deepen your sense of community and connection around this work, as well as small group time to discuss things with other participants. And on the page, you'll also see a number of extra bonuses that are all very carefully designed to enhance your journey. There's an excerpt from the Enneagram Masterclass from Beatrice called Explore the Growth Paths of the Enneagram. There's also a booklet from Beatrice called The Ultimate Subtype Guide. That sounds particularly intriguing. You want to share a little bit more about that?
Sure, yeah. I think one of the things I've really tried to bring to the Enneagram community is a deeper understanding of the subtypes, which are the three versions of the nine types based on which one of three instincts is strongest in you. And people really find the subtype teaching really powerful because it helps people get even more specific and nuanced about what's going on with them and how to address whatever challenges they may be experiencing. It's like instead of using a blunt instrument, it's like getting in there with a scalpel and really understanding how exactly to do what you might need to do to change in a very specific, nuanced way.
That's a great extra bonus. And there's a little more detail on the page as well about that. And there's one special bonus, which I think is so important, which you get if you sign up right away. And this is actually being able to take the Enneagram test for free. This is a code to Beatrice's Enneagram assessment, which is our own signature process. And Beatrice, you want to share a little bit about being able to do that for free when folks sign up by the end of today?
Sure. I've worked with two partners to create what we think is really one of the best Enneagram tests out there to help you find your type and also provide a lot of information about what type you might be. And it's called the Enneagram, the CPS Enneagram Compass Test. And you'll get a free code and you'll take the test online. It takes about 30 minutes. And then you get a 20-page report that gives you a lot of information about your type, your likely type, and it helps you understand what type you might be, but also start learning about that type right from the get-go.
What a great extra reason to sign up right away. So really appreciate your generosity with that. And also with the whole program, I think is just going to be such a beautiful offering for people. We've also kept the investment for this program really accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128, so you save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start August 29th and run Thursdays and one Tuesday at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. But even if you can't make those live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts in the community as well. And I also want to draw your attention to the testimonials on the page. Beatrice has taught before with Shift and great testimonials. This course was eye-opening and transformative, very insightful. She's amazing. Overall, a great course. Listening to Beatrice is a gift. Such great testimonials of the quality, depth, and really beauty of what she's offering. So she's really dedicated her life to this work, and so you get to harvest the fruits for you and your path, and it's all at the enneagrampath.com. So Beatrice, we're nearing the end of the hour. Anything still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering going deeper into the Enneagram of spiritual awakening with you?
Well, I just want to say, I think, from my long experience working with the Enneagram, it's a path that really works. And I think so many people today are really in need of some sort of inner development work that can really help them emerge from suffering or clarify the path forward. And I think the Enneagram is something that really, really helps people create breakthroughs in their life and create the positive change that they really need. And you use the word liberate. And I think it's also something that really helps people find a deep sense of liberation. And so I'm really just excited to be able to offer this course for people to take this journey.
Awesome. Well, we're really blessed. Again, you can get more detail at the enneagrampath.com for Beatrice's program on the Enneagram of Spiritual Awakening. And if you sign up today, you're going to get that Enneagram test for free. So thank you so much, Beatrice, for this hour. Thank you all for joining, and we look forward to seeing many of you in our upcoming program. Many blessings. you